Oh yeah. Hello everybody. Right here for TopoRanger, and we are back at Gunpowder Falls, and the creek is looking very nice. For some reason I thought it was going to be muddy and high, but it's clear and low. So that's good for us. So we are heading back to Pretty Boy Cave, and then we're going to go beyond that. Oh, wild turkey. Big wild turkey. See it? And I am wearing my muck boots here so that we can just head upstream in the stream channel as opposed to bushwhacking along the very thorny banks of this creek. And that's really the only way we're going to be able to get to the spot or spots that I'm talking about. And I'm betting there's some more caves up there. This is the Pretty Boy Cave outcrop. It's right up there, and then the smaller one is right at the base here. So we're almost at the waterfall valley, at which point we're gonna have to hit the creek, maybe go up around this bend. I wanted to stop right here just to talk about the Pretty Boy Cave, and also any other caves that we're looking for today, what they might probably be, what type of cave. And these are what I call METABASALT caves, or that's not what I call them, that's what in the literature they're called. There's not much about these type of caves, even though there's a lot of them around here. So the main bedrock here is the schist, the Pretty Boy schist, right? But injected into the schist a long time ago was basalt, right? Which is a volcanic, it's an igneous rock. So it was forced into these cracks, and there came to be all these pockets of basalt. And then the whole thing went back underground and was acted on by heat and pressure, and metamorphically changed, right? Schist itself is a metamorphic rock, and eventually this schist with the pockets of metabasalt in it gets exposed at the surface as streams like this have cut down over, you know, let's say the last 5 million years. Let's give a time range, right? Which includes the Pleistocene or the Ice Age. I personally think a lot of these metabasalt washout caves were mainly created over the course of the last 2.5 million years, or the Pleistocene, the Ice Ages, because that's when the weather would have been such that it would have been most effective at rapidly creating these things. But I wanted to show you this right here because I think this is a really good example of it. And I'm not 100% on this. This is just my amateur geologist opinion. This is the metabasalt, right? And this is the schist. And if you look up here, follow my finger, right? There, and then across, right? This represents one of those pockets of metabasalt that got forced into the schist. Because if you look at this stuff here, it's different than the schist. It has this foliation, right? Like the schist has the foliation, which is kind of evidence of the metamorphic transformation. But if you look closely, you can see the rock itself has very small, what look like vesicles. It looks like a dark rock interspersed with this quartz. It has these tiny little vesicles, kind of like a basalt, because some igneous rock has big vesicles, some has small vesicles. You don't see that in the schist, because the schist is not basalt. The schist is, I think, shale. I think it's schist is shale that's been metamorphically altered. So that's why this looks so different, right? Yeah, and basically what happens with the washout caves is they're usually located close to creeks, and they're oriented in such a way that this stuff here is more susceptible to freeze thaw and erosion over time than this stuff here. And right here is a great example, though, I think, of how these things form. So within this big mass of basalt, we almost have like a little miniature metabasalt cave, and you'll notice that there's water running right out of here. So, and you'll notice it's on a slight angle. So during the winter, this water will freeze, right? It'll slowly crack the exposed portions of the metabasalt like this, right? Water will get in here, and you know that water, when it's freezing, has an enormous power to, you know, basically pry things apart, right? And here you can see this? This is loose, right? Over long periods of time, what I'm thinking is mostly the last ice age, the surface has been slowly eroded back, and because there is a little bit of water coming out of there, that just speeds up the process. So this little mini cave here is a result of there being a water coming out back there, because that freezes and that helps chips fall out. It also, during the winter when this is frozen over, it also provides an angled slope for which things can and then slide right out. And that in a nutshell is the theory as to how these metabasalt caves form. Pretty Boy Cave, which is right around the corner here, just happens to be the largest example of this type of cave that I've ever seen. In fact, Pretty Boy Cave completely blew up my conception of how big these things can be, right? Before I was in that cave, I would look at something like this and be like, yeah, this is a nice size, you know, basalt washout cave, because you can find a lot of these, and we have seen a lot of these on the channel. And there's a nice cool breeze blowing out of here. Most of these I've seen in York County, but they do get this big. But this is about it. This would be a pretty nice size one. But then we came and we saw Pretty Boy, which is huge. I mean, in terms of what I've seen, it's massive. And that's one reason why I want to come back here, because now that I know these things can grow to a much larger size than I thought possible before, and that this one is right here, I'm thinking maybe up there at that last turn of the creek as it goes past the River Valley Ranch, there's that big last hurrah of an outcrop, and it was just filled with all kinds of stuff. It looked very promising to me. And also between here and that spot, there's a whole bunch of stuff on this side too. So I think there's a good chance that we might be able to just, you know, stumble across something new or relatively new that really nobody has seen before, or very few people have seen before. So I'm just gonna get a drink of water, and we're just gonna go past the waterfall, and I think we're gonna hit the stream and walk up the valley. See that? That's an accident waiting to happen, right? Let's stay away from that. If I remember correctly, this is right about where we turned around due to lack of a trail in the last episode. So let's see what happens right up here. Look at this nice creek, man. Look at that. Get around this corner. Okay, my bad. This is actually where we stopped before, because I remember this island. There was this little gravel bank. So this is where we stopped before. This is where the trail ends. And what we just saw is right over there. Let's go look at that still though, because I think we missed that last time we were here. We got to get up through here, and there are a lot of thorns. All right, we're maybe 50 feet above the stream now. And just for a note, the cave that we explored in the very first episode here in the beautiful Gunpowder Falls, at the end of that episode we went up to this cave that was on high up in a cliff. That's right over there, and that was kind of like a fault cave. But look at this up here. That's where we're going. This looks like metabasalt right here. See that? Yeah, it's definitely, it's got that there. You can see that. It's got that those vesicles in it. I think this would be the schist. The one thing we need to remember is that some of these caves, the entrances could be obscured. Over time, rocks fall down, a tree grows there. So you might have to look a little bit more carefully to really find one. This is where we need to be, right up in there. You see that rock there? I don't know if it's coming out in the camera, but to my eye, it has kind of a rusty iron color to it. I think that is the metabasalt. And there are mines that started out as metabasalt caves. There's one in Glen Rock, I think, which started out as a modestly sized cave, and it was made larger by mining because Sometimes I think the metabasalt gets rich enough that it actually becomes like ore, and they would mine for it. I guess they would use it in iron furnaces and whatnot. And yet another example, this one is contrasted right up against white quartzite. You see that? So this one really makes the black metabasalt, which is kind of like, see how it's intruding into the quartz there? Kind of makes it pop, makes it easier to see. It's like a big, gnarly, it's almost like the rock equivalent of burlwood, where it's just this huge knot, you know, twisted. And then by the time you get up there, you're back into the actual schist. You can only see traces of the basalt. And this thing here is actually completely detached and sliding down into the stream. Let's go around the corner. So far, we haven't found anything yet. This is not one of the, this would be a fracture cave. You see how this is just a huge, that giant piece I just pointed out is actually split. Let's check right over here. Oh, it's so thorny here. And look at it. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ah. It's just horrific thorns here. Looks like we do have some right here. See that stuff right there? Yeah, here's a nice piece of it right here. See, now we're getting ourselves into a thorn trap here. We want to be right there. I should have brought my machete. This would be a perfect place for that. If you can see that. Oh my god. That's why I'm wearing this hoodie. Trust me, I do not want to be wearing this hoodie right now because it's hot, but with the ticks and the thorns, I feel like I have to. Otherwise, I'm not going to be a happy camper. Oh, hey, what's this? Oh, hey, I think we have something here. This would be a good place to take a break and get some water too. We're only about 40-50 feet off of the river still. This spot right here is what we're looking at. Let's go ahead and see what we got here. This was the entrance that caught my eye. Although you really can't see this until you're right up on it. I happen to be right there, and that's the only reason I could see that I went back here. See that reddish stuff there? Huh. That's the kind of stuff I'm thinking they might have been, you know, mined as ore, because it might have enough iron in it. Right, let's take a peek down this little critter hole here. And it does go back there. See that? That looks like an old critter poop hole. But if you look back that way, I mean, it goes back in there. I don't know how far. And there's a lot of poop back there, so it's kind of gross. Yeah, I'm thinking this might be one. That is enterable, but I tell you what, there's a lot of poop and it gets really small. But I do think this is a washout cave, because it's not as if this chunk is sliding and there's a big fracture. There seems to be a lot of the metabasalt right here, maybe in a fold, and it goes as a crawlway back into here, which, quite honestly, I have not really seen something quite like this yet in terms of these kind of caves, whether it's here or in York County. So it's too bad it's filled with poop, because this does look promising to me. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to head back down to the stream, because this area here is so covered with thorns that we really can't go anywhere. I'll be lucky if I can get back down. But I do see a pretty massive outcrop right down there, and we can just hike up the stream there and maybe cool off a little bit. We're on the other side of the creek now, because if I want to go here or maybe somewhere up there, it's just a lot easier to go on this trail than the bushwhack. I kind of want to go up there, because that's a neat looking spot right there, but we could also just continue down to the River View Ranch, or the River Valley Ranch, whatever it's called, and then hit that big one that's right before you get to that little valley. And I think that's what we're gonna do, because we're already almost there. I got some water in my boots, so I don't care about that anymore. So let's go ahead and hike on down. We just hiked about 10 minutes up the upstream here, and we are here. A lot of this is already obscured, but this spot right here, this whole area here, is what I'm talking about. When I was here the first time, you could see a lot more. We're gonna focus right there because that is the biggest and the most in your face that we can see from this spot. It's like an A-frame. Oh, look at that. It's very angular. I don't think it goes anywhere. No. Alright, that just seems to be a shelter made by maybe the cleavage planes. I don't know. There's another one right over here. And we are pretty much at the top of this outcrop in just this one area. I mean, it goes way down there. I'm just not seeing anything. And I hate to say this, but I'm starting to think this might be one of those days where we just come up empty-handed. And that, I don't like that. I do not, that does not make me feel good in terms of the video. Hey, hold on a second, guys, hold on. I might have spoken too soon. There's a big crop out here. Let's go up there, that's easy to get to. Huh, that looks pretty nice right there. Here's some blue nylon rope. Why would that be here? You see this rope here? Why is this rope here? I'm not seeing anything. All right, well, we looked that whole part of the outcrop right there. I didn't go with a fine-tooth comb, but I was looking, and we were up almost the whole way to the top of the ridge. Down over here, I think there's some trails up there that are used by the River Valley Ranch people, perhaps. Not really trail, I mean, you wouldn't even call them a trail, but you can tell there's the people up there. And there's nothing here. And the main reason I think is that because there's no basalt up here. Now, when we were back down here, at the previous places we were looking, we were seeing the basalt everywhere. Around every corner, there was a little pocket of it here. I didn't see really anything. So that's the reason why there's nothing up there. The trail parallels the creek for a ways. So I might just walk down the creek, keeping my eye off to the left, because there's a lot more outcrop down here. But I'm running up against time, water, and battery power. I have to start thinking about, you know, making my way back. So that's the fault cave from the first Gunpowder episode. And I just walked the base of that whole outcrop. I didn't see anything. And I'm pretty much defeated for the day. My energy is flagging. All right, everybody, we are back at the bridge. That's the Gunpowder going down. That's the Gunpowder going up. That's where we came from. I checked out that last outcrop, and there was just nothing there. And you know, I don't even know if I'm gonna publish this because I just very frustrated that we didn't really find anything. Usually I'm good for at least one good find when it's kind of like a shot in the dark episode, which is what this was. And usually we come out looking good at the end, but today, I don't know, just I guess it wasn't in the cards. Maybe we should have maybe I should have went down there, because the trail also goes here and that goes down into the Hemlock Gorge. And I know there's some cool stuff down there. But I guess that's going to be a wrap. I hope you guys had fun anyway. I know I surely did. This is Brett for TopoRanger, and I'll see everyone in the next episode.